years now, first-person shooter role-playing hybrids taking place in a wasteland have been a staple of our holiday diet. With a new one being released every year, the trend is strong, and the game to take up the reins for Holiday 2011 is Rage, the first game from notorious FPS creator id Software since Doom 3. It's time to grab a shotgun, start sifting through ruins again, and watch out for muties while you do it. Right from its inception, Rage draws reference from popular past Wasteland titles. The story goes that in 2029, Earth and the human race is doomed because of the real-life meteorite called Apophis. Unlike in our reality though, Apophis is on an unalterable collision course with Earth. In an effort to prevent our extinction, large stasis units called arcs are filled with volunteers and buried underground across the world. However, things don't go quite as planned, and you turn out to be the only survivor from your particular arc. After 106 years of cryogenic hibernation, you're woken up and step out into the wasteland for the first time to see what has become of the world post-apocalypse. Sound familiar? Even though Rage starts off with a strong introductory cinematic, the story is only decent, if not weak. Things start off slow, with no real tangible threat to propel the plot forward. It takes time before you can garner the story's direction, and even longer before you get a brief explanation of what went wrong with the ARC program. Furthermore, just as the story begins to heat up, Rage abruptly ends. While the sudden and inconclusive finale is certainly jarring and disappointing, it could serve as a good starting point for quality story-based downloadable content. At present though, and if no DLC comes to light, Rage is a game that you shouldn't be buying for its story. Luckily though, the actual gameplay fares far better.
Well, I guess you don't know anything about any of this. Welcome to the future.
As a genre mixer, Rage combines traditional first-person shooter mechanics and a moderate number of RPG elements. But surprisingly enough, there's also a significant amount of vehicle combat and racing present as well. The game breaks down to getting quests in a local town, grabbing a set of wheels, heading to your destination, and then running around on foot gunning down enemies. Don't let that simple digest of actions fool you though. The environment you're in is almost always different. Jobs vary quite a bit, and who or what you end up shooting at changes frequently. Thus, the feeling of redundancy is greatly reduced from where it could have easily landed. The only constant thing you'll see is the large wasteland world space that you drive through, which connects all of the smaller areas where gunplay takes place. Most new areas you visit are introduced through the main quest line, but you can usually revisit each one during optional subquests, which are usually found on bounty boards. The shooting mechanics are tight and very responsive, of the caliber you would expect from a game this big. When you get into a gunfight, there's no question that Rage is an FPS first and foremost. The good controls are put to proper use too, as the game has superior enemy AI. Foes are not very predictable, and there's a plenitude of ways they may react to the variety of possible scenarios that can occur. It keeps you on your toes, which is good, because it keeps typically redundant trigger action feeling fresh. Another element of Rage is its RPG mechanics, which are rather simplistic. They come nowhere near the complexity of, say, Fallout or Borderlands. You're limited to looting, selling, buying, crafting, and swapping between special ammo types for your guns. In all honesty, the RPG elements are remarkably similar to those found in BioShock, if a comparison was ever to be drawn. Vehicle combat is a big part of Rage 2. While driving through the wasteland, you can get into skirmishes with multiple bandit clans who seek to own the roads. There's incentive to engage them too, as for each bandit car you destroy, you are paid in cash by the bar owner in the local town. There are also races you can enter in each town for each class of vehicle you can own in the game. The competitions range from time trials to checkpoint collection matches, with or without weapons. The races are critical to owning a better ride too, as vehicle upgrades can only be purchased with racing certificates, which can only be acquired by winning matches. The driving controls are a bit odd though. Realistic they are not, and you'll have to get used to them before feeling comfortable behind the wheel. Rage, on an interactive level, is at the very least above par. The shooting mechanics are great, and even though the driving is a bit lukewarm, it's fun, and the RPG elements, though simple, back up both very well. If there's anything that can be said about the Wasteland in Rage, it's the most beautiful one yet. Premiering the brand new id Tech 5, which utilizes massive texture streaming, there's supposedly not a single repeated image covering any surface in the game. Sure, you'll see reused advertising posters from before the apocalypse, but that's more of a fact of reality than a factor of lazy artwork. Everywhere else, though, the non-repeating textures can be seen clear as day, and it goes a long way in improving the enormous panoramic views you see while driving across the wastes. That, coupled with how the game was designed from the ground up to run at an incredible 60 frames per second, and you have a wasteland that is truly a sight to behold. The major downfall, however, is how textures are fuzzy upon closer inspection. It's possible to forgive this though, since Rage is an action game and is by no means focused on leisurely strolls. If anything though, issues with texture draw-in are the game's largest setbacks. Because of how the engine has to stream textures, they're drawn in as you rotate your view. The problem, however, is how the textures can take nearly a whole second to draw in fully. How bad this effect is depends on what console or computer you're playing on. However, the graphical glitch is hardly a game breaker, save for a few unlucky souls who suffer the worst of it. For most though, it's primarily just an aesthetic blemish. If there's anything that can be said about Rage, it's that it strives to be more than the sum of its parts. Even though it doesn't achieve that, and it suffers some hiccups from the uniquely different technology it uses, it's still a solid game. It's obvious a lot of care and work went into it, which is why, despite its shortcomings, Rage is a game worth purchasing.